Even if these people were bolder, they would never offend young Master Joyo, said the middle-aged man, flattering the young man. With that, an old man seated there as well opened his eyes. He glanced at the middle-aged man in great disgust and said, I'm afraid the owner of the god artifact won't just let it go like this. The eyes of Anya Joyo turned cold. He said, so what? I've followed the rules of the auction and won it righteously. If he has any problems, he can come find me. Young Master Joyo, have you ever considered that we might have guessed wrong, and they're not really a god king but a primordial realm expert? Asked the old man sternly. So what if he's a primordial realm expert? Primordial realm experts who remain in the high-class cabins are often the most useless primordial realm experts. If he has any problems, he's more than welcome to come and find me, Anya Joyo said arrogantly. He completely looked down on the seller. The old man sighed gently and thought, it would be fine if he's just a god king. We can just kill him in that case. However, if he's a primordial realm expert, offending him over a low-quality god artifact isn't a clever decision. Anya Joyo sneered and said, moreover, I'm certain that he won't have the courage. Even the organizations that rank first and second on the Jade Fluid Plane have to show our Darkness clan respect. However, as soon as Anya Joyo said that, a voice rang out. Hold on. This god artifact won't be sold for anything less than 5,005 colored divine crystals. Jian Shen had spoken from his viewing box. His voice was very calm. It rang across the entire auction center and clearly left no room for negotiation. How could he let his low-quality god artifact be bought for a low price of just 10 5-color divine crystals? His voice immediately silenced the entire auction center. Even the host became stunned. Jian Shen's attitude was so firm that he even ignored the rules of the auction center. The price of any item would be decided through the auction. Even if the seller wanted to request a certain price, he would have to do it before the auction started and not now when the item was about to be sold. This completely broke the rules of the auction center. Anya Joyo's face sank in the viewing box of the Darkness clan. Coldness appeared in his eyes. I know this voice. It's the person who brought out the god artifact, said the middle-aged man who had been sucking up to the young master. Humph, Anya Joyo snorted coldly. He growled and said, my Darkness clan has already bid. Sir, you're raising the price on the spot, right after our Darkness clan has bid. Are you purposefully creating problems for our Darkness clan? Moreover, the auction center has its rules. I advise you to respect those rules. Rules? Are the rules of the auction center removing the reserve price and collaborating with others such that items can be sold at extremely low prices? If those are the rules of the auction center, is there even a need to follow them? Will anyone be bold enough to sell their items here in the future? Jian Shen said righteously. With that, a buzz immediately filled the auction center. All the people present discussed among themselves quietly. They all blamed the auction center. What was happening right now was clear to everyone. A precious god artifact had only reached 10 5-colored divine crystals, and no one else placed a bid. It was basically obvious that someone was pulling strings. Where was the fairness? 5,005 colored divine crystals is the reserve price for this god artifact. Everyone is welcome to continue bidding, Jian Shen said once again. He ignored the auction center and the Darkness clan, setting down his own rule. How bold of this person to not even fear the Darkness clan, murmured the middle-aged man from the Myriad Water Estate who had spoken to Jian Shen threateningly a few days ago. It's very likely that he's at the primordial realm, said the old man to Anya Joyo. Killing intent immediately filled Anya Joyo's eyes. Suddenly, he looked at the old man and said icily, go ask the spectral elder to take action. Anyone who ignores our Darkness clan cannot be permitted to live. Chapter 2401, Under Attack in Outer Space, 2. At this moment, a skinny, black-robed old man sat in an extremely well-decorated cabin on the spatial battleship. The old man's appearance was nothing special. He was the type that would not catch anyone's attention at all in a crowd. He kept his presence concealed, so he seemed like an ordinary person. The skinny old man was the spectral elder that Anya Joyo referred to. He was an infinite prime of the Darkness clan and was here to escort Anya Joyo to the Star Brilliance plane. He was responsible for Anya Joyo's safety. Before the spectral elder stood the old man who accompanied Anya Joyo before. He passed on what Anya Joyo said word for word to the spectral elder. Joyo wants the person who's auctioning the god artifact dead? After learning the entire story, the spectral elder opened his eyes slowly. His eyes were gloomy, possessing no light or emotions at all. He seemed like someone who regularly roamed the night, constantly covering himself. Even now, it was very difficult for him to raise a lot of attention. At this moment, the spectral elder closed his eyes, and the powerful senses of his soul emanated to the top floor of the spatial battleship. Before long, he opened his eyes again and said slowly, "The subjects of the Float Empire have already confirmed the person to be a primordial realm expert. Joyo has been a little too reckless with this matter." "Spectral elder, what should we do now?" asked the old man politely. Although Joyo has been rather reckless, he is the most impressive junior of the Darkness clan, and it's extremely likely for him to take over the clan. "Since he wants this person dead, I'll do it," said the spectral elder indifferently. It was like assassinating primordial realm experts was a daily task for him. The people of the Darkness clan possessed an ancient Darkness bloodline that made them natural kings of the dark. They were all assassins and were skilled at assassination. Even against opponents more powerful than themselves, they could use sudden sneak attacks to take their lives when their guards were lowered. Even if the sneak attack failed, they could use their natural advantage to hide in the darkness. They could become invisible and simply retreat. As a result, although the Darkness clan ranked third on the Jade Fluid plane, even the organizations that ranked first and second did not want to provoke them without good reason. Perhaps the battle prowess of the people from the Darkness clan was not the greatest, but they were definitely the most difficult to deal with. Bang! At this moment, a heavy sound suddenly rang out and filled every inch of the spatial battleship. Afterwards, the entire spatial battleship shook violently. Caught off guard, many of the cultivators on the ship almost fell over. The many cultivators gathered in the auction center fell into disorder. Cries and curses constantly rang out. The ship shook far too severely. Moreover, since the crowd in the auction center had directed their focus elsewhere, many of them were caught off guard and collided with the people beside them, creating chaos there. "Space beasts are attacking. Everyone, return to your respective cabins immediately." The powerful senses of the soul swept over as a great voice boomed through the heads of every single cultivator thunderously. "God damn it, why have we come across space beasts again? How many waves has it been? We were warned beforehand when we encountered space beasts the last few times. Why did the reminder come so late?" Grumbles rang out from various places on the spatial battleship. The cultivators gathered there all moved as quickly as they could, returning to their cabins in an orderly manner. Their journey through outer space had not been smooth. They had encountered attacks from space beasts many times, so everyone had grown accustomed to this. They did not find it strange. Boom! At this moment, another great rumble rang out. The spatial battleship endured an extremely violent attack, causing it to shake intensely. Compared to before, it shook countless times more vigorously. The spatial battleship seemed to be knocked away, and the inertia made it difficult for all the cultivators to stand firm. Many were thrown into the air and rammed against their cabins heavily. Among these people, a large number became bumped and bruised. "Everyone, return to your cabins immediately and channel energy into the formation." The great voice rang out from the top floor again, booming through every corner of the spatial battleship. It was extremely stern. Every single spatial battleship was like a flying fortress. It was covered with formations that connected every region together. They were extremely powerful. Every cabin had a point where energy could be provided such that all the cultivators on board could provide energy to the formations of the spatial battleship to fend off outside attacks. However, they would not do that for every single attack from space beasts. The spatial battleship would only borrow the energy from all the cultivators when the spatial battleship itself was threatened, and it was difficult to fend off the situation outside using the ship alone. As a result, the hearts of all the cultivators on the spatial battleship sank when they heard that they needed to channel their energy. All of them had clearly realized that they had probably encountered a huge danger this time. The ongoing auction was forced to come to a halt as well. "Sir, please come to the deck." At the same time, an old voice rang out in Jian Chen's head. One of the protectors who served the Float Empire had communicated to him from the top floor. "Kaya, let's go to the deck and have a look." Meanwhile, Jian Chen remained extremely composed. Kaya nodded and left the viewing box with Jian Chen, arriving on the deck of the spatial battleship. It was possible to see the endless cosmos clearly from the deck. From this place, the stars would rapidly recede in the surroundings. However, the spatial battleship had become surrounded by many space beasts now. The space beasts were several dozen meters long. They were completely golden, and their shapes were extremely strange as well. They seemed like sharp swords. At this moment, many space beasts had gathered around the spatial battleship. They launched attacks wildly at the protective formations. The powerful formations of the spatial battleship constantly distorted and twisted under the fierce barrage of attacks. The power of the formations was rapidly depleting. At the same time, deafening booms rang out, shaking the entire ship violently. It was like the ship was getting knocked away. There were powerful existences equivalent to the primordial realm among the space beasts, and there were many of them. Golden sword beasts, limbless, sword-shaped, and extremely tough. They moved through outer space at extremely great speeds and used the tip of their bodies to stab their opponents. The information regarding the species of space beast flashed through his mind the moment he saw them. He was no longer as ignorant as before. Even though he did not have any in-depth knowledge about the beasts that lived in outer space, he knew about them to a certain degree. Golden sword beasts form huge swarms. There will be many of them every time the swarm moves. Now that the spatial battleship has been surrounded by golden sword beasts, it'll be very difficult to break free if we don't kill them. The spatial battleship moves very quickly, but it's still difficult to outspeed primordial realm golden sword beasts. After all, they live in outer space and thrive here. Shaking them off won't be easy, Jian Chen thought quickly and understood the situation that they faced. "Sir, you must understand the situation we face right now as well. The formations on the spatial battleship cannot be maintained for too long. If we don't kill these golden sword beasts, everyone will be in trouble once the formations run out of energy. After all, the golden sword beasts possess astonishing speed in outer space, and there are even existences equivalent to us at the primordial realm. They can even outspeed the spatial battleship. Once we lose the spatial battleship, it'll be impossible for us to shake them off with our strength in outer space." An old voice rang out. The 6 people who served the Float Empire gathered together on another part of the deck. They were all stern as they made their way towards Jian Chen. The one who spoke was a white-robed old man. He was ruddy and seemed rather sage-like. However, his eyebrows were as straight and sharp as swords, giving him a piercing presence. 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime. Jian Chen's heart leapt. He saw through the old man's strength. He was the most powerful person out of the 6 primordial realm experts, having reached peak Infinite Prime. The 5 other old men were much weaker compared to him. Clearly, they followed his lead. The Fa Yun that Jian Chen encountered several days ago also happened to be among them. "I am Jian Pain. I hope that you can assist us in killing the golden sword beasts," continued the 9th Heavenly Layer Infinite Prime, requesting Jian Chen's assistance sincerely. "I can already sense 12 presences that belong to the primordial realm among the golden sword beasts. One of them is close to chaotic prime. It'll be extremely difficult for us few to kill them all," said Jian Chen. "Do not worry, sir. There are a few more people at the primordial realm on the ship. They've already come," Jian Pain said. With that, another 2 people arrived on the deck as expected. They were a middle-aged man of medium stature and an extremely handsome young man. Including Jian-Chen, a total of 9 primordial realm experts had now gathered on the deck. 2 first heavenly layer infinite primes. Jian-Chen glanced past the 2 primordial realm experts and saw through their strengths with a single glance, causing him to shake his head secretly. It would be fine if the 2 first heavenly layer infinite primes possessed extraordinary battle prowess, but they would struggle to protect themselves if they were just regular infinite primes. This was because the battle prowess of golden sword beasts were able to overwhelm cultivators of the same level. As a result, only those with extraordinary battle prowess could handle one of these space beasts at the same level of cultivation. Boom! At this moment, the spatial battleship shook violently again. The 12 primordial realm golden sword beasts all launched powerful attacks. Under the leadership of the golden sword beast that had almost reached chaotic prime, a total of 12 primordial realm strikes landed on the same location of the spatial battleship. It was devastating. The combined might of the strikes had surpassed infinite prime and reached chaotic prime. The strikes immediately ripped open a great hole in the formations of the spatial battleship. The formations rapidly dimmed, and their defenses suddenly plummeted. I'll keep the most powerful golden sword beast busy. I'll leave the rest to you. Time was tight, so it was already too late for them to come up with any special arrangements. With that, Jianping left the spatial battleship first, engaging in a battle with the strongest golden sword beast. Immediately, booms rang out, and the entire region distorted. Powerful sword chi engulfed the battlefield, ripping open gashes in space. Jianping comprehended the laws of the sword. Not only was he the person with the greatest cultivation on the spatial battleship, but he was also the one with the most terrifying battle prowess. Against Jianping was a golden sword beast that was thousands of meters long. It flickered with golden light and constantly stabbed and slashed at Jianping like a huge flying sword. It was extremely fast. At the same time, the 5 other primordial realm protectors from the Float Empire charged off at the spatial beasts. They each kept a primordial realm golden sword beast busy. Only Jian-Chen and the other 2 first heavenly layer infinite primes remained on the spatial battleship now. Jian-Chen remained calm, but the 2 other infinite primes were stern as if they were about to face a great enemy. Jian-Chen, primordial realm golden sword beasts are basically covered in treasure. They're priceless, so don't forget to collect their corpses, said Kaya to remind him. She had spent a long period of time with him, and they had fought together many times as well. She understood Jian-Chen's strength extremely well, so she did not worry about him at all. Brother, do not get blinded by greed. The golden sword beasts are very powerful. The slightest carelessness can even claim the lives of primordial realm experts. Surviving is what's important, said the middle-aged man nearby to Jian-Chen. With that, he charged off into space, beginning a battle with the weakest primordial realm golden sword beast. In the end, the handsome young man glanced past Jian-Chen indifferently. He said nothing and charged off the spatial battleship. Kaya, take care of yourself. Jian-Chen reminded Kaya and stopped hesitating. With a single step, he charged towards the crack in the formation and arrived at the battlefield. The 8 primordial realm experts kept 8 golden sword beasts busy. Apart from the strongest Jianping, none of the others faced the golden sword beasts in open combat. They maneuvered their way around the beasts. Jianping engaged in an extremely intense battle to the death against the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden beast. There are 4 more primordial realm golden sword beasts left. 2 of them are at the 2nd heavenly layer, 1 is at the 3rd heavenly layer, and 1 is at the 6th heavenly layer. Jian-Chen glanced past the 4 other golden sword beasts. The 4 golden sword beasts continued their wild attack at the spatial battleship. Due to their lesser intelligence, they did not know how to adapt to the situation. They only mindlessly followed the orders of their leader, attacking the formations of the spatial battleship. Even when cultivators brushed past them, they would completely ignore them as long as the orders from their leader were not completed yet. As a result, the spatial battleship would remain their target as long as they were not provoked. Even though these space beasts possessed an advantage in terms of battle prowess, they suffered from a fatal disadvantage of low intelligence. At this moment, a powerful sword intent suddenly appeared. It surged and seemed to be filled with a supreme bearing of the ways. It was like the ruler of the world had arrived, making everything in the surroundings yield to him. Even the supreme laws and order in the surroundings changed ever so slightly. Jian Chen struck out. He was clad in light as his bearing became abstruse, filled with a sense of immortal. His will engulfed a region of 100,000 kilometers. Wherever his will was present, all the powers below him became his own way, something that he could control. At that moment, Jian Chen seemed to rule over the world as he unleashed his bearing as a sword immortal. This was the ultimate way of the sword he had comprehended. At this moment, he slowly raised his right hand, and he pointed it above him. Immediately, all the godhood golden sword beasts within a range of 100,000 kilometers froze. In the next moment, heavy booms erupted. All the golden sword beasts there actually exploded. Golden body fragments and dazzling golden blood surged out like a flood. All of it gathered above Jian Chen, forming a huge sword completely condensed from the remains of the golden sword beasts. The golden sword beasts had been killed by Jian Chen's powerful will. Jian Chen comprehended the ultimate way of the sword, so he was a ruler that possessed the power to kill all things. His will had become the laws of the world there, forming his own domain. Within it, all existences and powers below him were under his control. A single thought was all he needed to decide life or death. In the blink of an eye, a range of 100,000 kilometers around Jian Chen emptied out. All the golden sword beasts there vanished. Under the control of his powerful will, they all gathered above his head, turning into a colossal sword forged from blood and flesh that shone with dazzling golden light. This was the first time Jian Chen had truly fought after becoming a sword immortal and comprehending the ultimate way of the sword. The might of his attack this time was world-shaking. It formed a terrifying scene such that all the primordial realm experts who were busy fighting their golden sword beasts looked over in shock. What powerful sword intent! What is this ability? It's so astonishing. Jian Pain, who fought against the 9th heavenly layer golden sword beast, noticed the disturbance near Jian Chen as well. When he looked at the huge sword condensed from the remains of many golden sword beasts above Jian Chen's head, he struggled to remain composed. This was because even he could not create such a grand scene. He actually killed so many golden sword beasts in the blink of an eye. What is this secret technique? Originally, I thought he was only a regular primordial realm expert because he was hiding in the high-class cabins. I never thought he would be so powerful. The 5 other primordial realm experts of the Float Empire were shaken up as well. Even though the godhood golden sword beasts were really nothing to them, it was still rather terrifying for someone to kill so many of them in a single moment. I'm probably not his opponent. I didn't offend him earlier, right? Fa Yun looked at Jian Chen, who stood in outer space like a sword. At this moment, he became filled with fear. Suddenly, there was a flash of intense white light. Sharp sword chi swept out. The huge sword condensed from the remains of the golden sword beasts above Jian Chen's head suddenly shone with dazzling light. It was so bright that it illuminated the entire space like a sun. The huge sword suddenly fell with powerful sword chi. Its target was one of 2nd heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beasts attacking the spatial battleship. Even though the golden sword beast had low intellect, it could still sense danger instinctively. Immediately, it stopped its attacks and turned around. It turned into a streak of golden light and stabbed towards Jian Chen. It was extremely fast, vanishing with a flash. However, no matter how fast it was unable to avoid Jian Chen's slash because his will had already locked onto it. Unless its strength exceeded Jian Chen's, it would not be able to avoid Jian Chen's attack. Boom! Jian Chen used the sword condensed from the remains of the beast's companions to slash the 2nd heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast, producing a heavy sound. The 2nd heavenly layer golden sword beast was blown away by the strike. A deep gash appeared on its body, and golden blood flowed out. Even though the golden sword beast managed to survive, it was heavily injured by Jian Chen's attack. Its light dimmed. With just the first attack, Jian Chen had heavily injured an extremely tough golden sword beast, a creature that was extremely difficult to deal with. Jian Chen stepped out and crossed through outer space in pursuit. His will enveloped the surroundings such that all the godhood golden sword beasts within 100,000 kilometers of him exploded and died. They were all killed by his will. With just a few flashes, Jian Chen arrived before the heavily injured golden sword beast. He extended his arm, and his hand shone with dazzling light. He pressed it against the colossal sword-shaped body of the golden sword beast. Immediately, the golden sword beast shook violently. The supreme power of the laws of the sword poured into its body through Jian Chen's hand, wreaking havoc inside its body. The golden sword beast struggled wildly, but it was unable to break free from Jian Chen's hand no matter how it resisted. Its wounds became heavier and heavier, and its life force rapidly leaked away. It was becoming weaker and weaker. A few seconds later, the golden sword beast stopped struggling. It lay in outer space, still. Its consciousness had been wiped out by Jian Chen. This was equivalent to a cultivator's soul shattering and dispersing. It was completely dead. How is that possible? He actually killed a second heavenly layer golden sword beast so quickly. How is this person so terrifying? All the primordial realm experts paid close attention to the details of the battlefield. They obviously saw Jian Chen kill the golden sword beast, so they were all shocked. They felt emotional turmoil. I can sense that his cultivation isn't that much greater than the golden sword beast, yet it was unable to fight back at all against him. It looks like his origins are not simple. It's extremely likely for him to be a figure from some ancient organization. Jianping glanced at Jian Chen deeply. At that moment, Jian Chen actually became mysterious to him. Whether it was Jian Chen's way of the sword or his battle prowess, they were both extremely astonishing. Neither of them was something a regular primordial realm expert could possess, so Jianping became suspicious about Jian Chen's origins. The black-robed spectral elder of the Darkness clan hid his presence and traces with a secret technique in another region of space. He seemed to have fused with the darkness, preventing anyone from noticing him. He stared at Jian Chen in the distance indifferently as he quietly paid attention to all of his actions. He was ready to assassinate Jian Chen. This person is extremely powerful. He's definitely not as simple as having just reached the primordial realm like I previously imagined. He probably has a great background. Do I kill him or not? Thought the spectral elder. Originally, he was prepared to kill Jian Chen. After all, regular primordial realm experts were nothing in his eyes. However, after he witnessed the strength Jian Chen displayed when he killed the second heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast, he ended up hesitating. Very few members of their darkness clan fought in open confrontations. What they were truly skilled with were assassinations, killing by delivering a fatal strike while the enemy was unaware. They would often be able to kill people even more powerful than themselves. As a result, the spectral elder did not fear Jian Chen. What really made him hesitate was Jian Chen's background and origins. He was afraid of offending a large organization and making trouble for the clan. He would take the risk and attack without any hesitation if there were any great treasures or profits on the line. However, this entire matter occurred because of a low-quality god artifact and Anya Joyo's impulsive actions. The spectral elder had to reconsider. Jian Chen had already begun stowing the golden sword beast's corpse away now. He did not care about the godhood golden sword beasts because they were not particularly valuable in his eyes. However, he needed to take note of the second heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast before him. The corpses of golden sword beasts were filled with treasure. Their hides were one of the best materials for forging weapons, and some formations required components of their bodies. Their blood was a crucial material in refining pills and possessed many other wondrous uses. As a matter of fact, the entire corpse of a golden sword beast could even be handed to a blacksmith and directly forged into a powerful weapon. If the golden sword beast before him was forged into a weapon, it would definitely be a god artifact. As a result, the corpse of the golden sword beast was a sizable sum of 5-colored divine crystals in Jian Chen's eyes. With a wave of his hand, the second heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast's corpse vanished from outer space. He had stowed it into his space ring. He did not pause after that. He struck out once again, targeting the golden sword beast at the same level as the one he just killed. Killing the weaker golden sword beasts was relatively easy for him. He could kill the third heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast if he fought it, but the fight would definitely take a lot longer. As a result, he specially targeted weaker opponents in hopes of killing the golden sword beasts as quickly as possible so that he could make their corpses his. Even though the corpse of a second heavenly layer golden sword beast is not worth as much as a forged god artifact, they're still worth 1,000 5-colored divine crystals at the very least, thought Jian Chen. Killing intent flashed through his eyes as sword chi surged from him. He had already begun to battle the second golden sword beast. At the same time, the formations on the spatial battleship were ripped open. Many godhood golden sword beasts formed a golden flow, surging towards the spatial battleship wildly. The various godhood cultivators on the spatial battleship had come to face them in battle now. They blocked the golden sword beasts on the deck. In a single moment, red and golden blood merged together, covering the entire deck. Meanwhile, various killing formations on the spatial battleship were activated. The weaker cultivators remained in their cabins, providing energy to the spatial battleship. As a result, the entire ship flickered resplendently. Many of the golden sword beasts were torn to pieces as soon as they came in contact with the killing formations. Golden blood splattered everywhere. The bloodbath between the cultivators and the golden sword beasts had reached a high intensity. It was no longer a battle between primordial realm experts only. It was a full-blown battle now. The battle between the primordial realm experts in outer space was the most violent. Half of the primordial realm experts were injured now. Their battle prowess was more ordinary, so they completely lost the upper hand against the golden sword beasts at the same level of cultivation. Even if they fought golden sword beasts that were a heavenly layer lower, they would only barely gain the upper hand. Killing them would be basically impossible. The golden sword beasts were extremely tough. It would be very difficult to inflict fatal injuries to them unless one's strength completely overshadowed them or an extraordinarily powerful attack was used. Only Yi Jianping managed to keep the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast suppressed with the offensive power of the laws of the sword he had comprehended, barely gaining the upper hand. But that was all. It was still impossible for Yi Jianping to kill the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. At this moment, a wondrous mental pulse was transmitted. It was filled with pain and grief. The second heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast had been killed by Jian Chen as well with lightning speed. In just a short while, 2 of the 12 primordial realm golden sword beasts had died to Jian Chen's hands. The death of the second primordial realm golden sword beast finally angered the 9th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. Immediately, it emitted a powerful mental pulse filled with anger. Golden sword beasts had no limbs or openings. They just seemed like golden swords. They were a unique beast that thrived in outer space, naturally born from special circumstances. As a result, they used their minds to communicate with one another. The 2 other primordial realm golden sword beasts, one at the 3rd heavenly layer and one at the 6th heavenly layer, both stopped their attacks at the spatial battleship when they heard the furious mental pulse. It was like they had received new orders. They both turned around and pointed their tips at Jian Chen. They charged towards him with surging killing intent. Jian Chen became stern. He did not dare to be careless when he had to face both a 3rd and 6th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast simultaneously. He immediately became cautious. Whatever. I'll just use you to test my true strength, thought Jian Chen. He felt no fear. Instead, this fight roused his battle intent. His presence surged as he directly charged towards the 2 golden sword beasts. Jian Chen's will from the ultimate way of the sword was only useful against power and existences that were weaker than him, such as the godhood golden sword beasts. Even if they were god kings, he could kill them with a single thought. However, against beasts that were on the same level as him, the effectiveness of his will would be greatly reduced. Beasts as powerful as that had the ability to resist his will. Suddenly, the powers of the laws of the sword descended. Two powerful strands of sword qi condensed on Jian Chen's two sides before shooting out as streaks of light. They ripped through space like bolts of lightning, hurtling towards the two primordial realm golden sword beasts. The sword qi contained his comprehension of the ultimate way of the sword, so they were even more powerful and vicious than regular sword qi. Boom! With a deafening boom, the weaker golden sword beast trembled and was actually pushed back by Jian Chen's sword qi. The stronger, sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast emerged mostly unaffected. It locked onto Jian Chen's presence, stabbing towards his soul with cold killing intent. It did not slow down at all. Jian Chen's face was cold, and his gaze was piercing. He gently swept his finger across the space before him. Immediately, the space where his fingertips passed was ripped open, forming a long crack. It was like invisible sword qi was hidden in the tip of his finger, possessing extremely astonishing power. In an instant, Jian Chen's finger collided with the golden sword beast. At a closer glance, his finger remained 3 inches away from the golden sword beast. However, this tiny distance seemed like a gaping chasm that neither of them could cross. The colossal golden sword beast and the tip of Jian Chen's finger became locked in a stalemate, 3 inches apart from each other. Time seemed to come to a standstill at that moment. However, this stalemate only lasted for a single moment. The space between Jian Chen's finger and the golden sword beast suddenly began to twist and tremble. It was like a terrifying power was being charged up. In the end, an extremely terrifying storm of energy suddenly erupted in that tiny space with a deafening boom. Jian Chen was immediately blown away by the energy. His dark, long hair flailed about from the storm of energy. Immediately, he clad himself with light from the laws of the sword to block the incoming energy. The sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast was the same as Jian Chen, having been pushed into a constant retreat by the storm of energy. Jian Chen and the golden sword beast were basically perfectly matched in the clash this time. This sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast is truly astonishingly tough. It's almost on the level of low-quality god artifacts. I probably can't kill it without using the 9-star sword of heavenly ways or the profound sword qi, Jian Chen thought. Although his finger attack earlier did not seem special, it actually possessed his full strength. This was the most powerful attack he could unleash when only using his laws of the sword. However, he failed to injure the golden sword beast with that attack. At the same time, the golden sword beast failed to injure Jian Chen as well. What strength! He can clash with a sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast and emerge unscathed, mid-infinite prime. This person's at the peak of mid-infinite prime at the very least, or maybe even late infinite prime. Everyone witnessed Jian Chen taking on the strike from the golden sword beast straight on, which immediately caused the primordial realm experts who served the Float Empire to gasp. Their gazes towards Jian Chen underwent a drastic change. Jian Chen's ultimate way of the sword was just too powerful. They were unable to tell Jian Chen's exact cultivation level from his laws of the sword, but his battle prowess alone was enough to stun them all. With such strength, he was the strongest expert on the spatial battleship aside from Jian Pain. To another side, the eyes of the spectral elder who had remained hidden the entire time narrowed slightly as well. The battle prowess that Jian Chen displayed just now surprised him as well. At that moment, the hesitant spectral elder made up his mind. He decided to give up on assassinating Jian Chen. However, just when the spectral elder was about to leave, a great sense of danger suddenly descended, immediately making his face change. From behind him, a lightning-fast streak of light directly approached. The sword qi was extremely fast. The reflection of the dazzling light rapidly expanded in the spectral elder's pupils. The sharp presence had already locked onto him. The spectral elder immediately felt like he could not dodge the attack. There was nowhere where he could go now that the sword qi had locked onto him. He could only take it on forcefully. What surprised the spectral elder the most was that before the sword qi even arrived, it managed to influence the space around him, turning it into a domain of sword chi in a single moment. The invisible sword chi seemed to be omnipresent, filling every inch of the space around him. Even the origin energy in outer space had been forcefully transformed into invisible sword chi. It was as if he would immediately face the attacks of the sword chi with the slightest movement. What powerful sword intent! The spectral elder shivered inside as he became extremely stern. A black sword immediately appeared in his hand. As a black streak of light, it silently attacked the incoming sword chi. The black sword was a low-quality god artifact. As a primordial realm expert who belonged to the Darkness clan that ranked third on the Jade Fluid Plane, he obviously possessed a god artifact. However, the presence of the god artifact was completely concealed, and none of it leaked out. It seemed to have fused with the darkness completely, stabbing out silently. It was very difficult to discover. Boom! With a heavy rumble, the spectral elder's god artifact collided with the incoming sword chi. He was immediately forced out of the darkness, becoming completely exposed. The strand of sword chi was extremely powerful. Although the spectral elder wielded a god artifact, he was unable to stop himself from being blown backwards after the clash. You can actually sense my existence? The spectral elder did not try to hide anymore. He hovered in outer space and stared at Jian Chen in the distance sternly. He was in emotional turmoil. Not only did his secret technique hide him in space, but it even covered all his traces and presence as well. Even opponents with greater cultivation than him would struggle to discover his existence. However, his secret technique was completely useless before Jian Chen. Moreover, he had been exposed from so far away, which was absolutely shocking. Jian Chen looked at the spectral elder and said, "You've been observing me secretly for so long. Was it just to watch me fight the golden sword beasts?" The spectral elder was taken aback when he heard that. Disbelief filled his face, and he cried out, Why, you actually found my presence long ago." Jian Chen took a single step and crossed the distance, arriving before the spectral elder instantly. He said emotionlessly, "You tailed me suspiciously. It looks like your Darkness clan wants to kill me." With that, Jian Chen's gaze gradually turned cold. "However, this is not the Jade Fluid Plane. Your Darkness clan can act as they wish on the Jade Fluid Plane, but your Darkness clan has no power in outer space." Light flickered on Jian Chen's hand. With that, he directly sent a palm strike towards the spectral elder. The palm strike contained his supreme sword intent. When he struck out, all the power in the surroundings seemed to become his, turning into omnipresent, invisible sword chi. The spectral elder's face changed drastically. As he faced Jian Chen's palm strike, he felt like he had completely sunken into a domain of sword chi. Endless sword chi surged towards him from all directions, forming a cage that locked him in. Suddenly, the spectral elder bellowed out, and the laws of darkness surged from his body. The god artifact in his hand shone with dark light as well. He stabbed towards Jian Chen as hard as he could. Third heavenly layer infinite prime. "Even if you wield a god artifact, you aren't my opponent," Jian Chen said coldly. His ultimate way of the sword was just too powerful, allowing him to possess battle prowess no weaker than a sixth heavenly layer infinite prime, and this was before he even used the 9-star sword of heavenly ways. In his eyes, the spectral elder was obviously not an opponent at the same level. Bang! With a grunt, the spectral elder was blown away. He immediately paled as bright red blood sprayed out from his mouth. His body had become covered with dense sword slashes, covering him with wounds. He became completely bloody. The sword wounds came from the domain. It was created by the omnipresent sword chi. This person is actually so terrifying. That bastard Anya Joyo has screwed me over. The spectral elder was extremely shocked. His gaze towards Jian Chen even bore a sliver of fear. He absolutely resented Anya Joyo. Jian Chen was just too powerful, especially his terrifying way of the sword. Even when the spectral elder wielded a god artifact, he felt powerless inside. He could not fend off his opponent at all. After all, the god artifact could give him a heavenly layer's worth of strength at most, allowing him to possess the strength to fend off fourth heavenly layer infinite primes. Against Jian Shen, who was no weaker than the sixth heavenly layer, a very large difference still existed. This time will only be a small punishment. If this happens a second time, don't blame me for not showing mercy. Why don't you hurry up and go deal with the golden sword beasts? Jian Shen barked. He did not attack the spectral elder anymore. He turned around and charged towards the sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. The spectral elder, on the other hand, watched Jian Shen leave with mixed feelings. When he calmed down, he also charged towards a golden sword beast. He worked with one of the protectors of the spatial battleship against them. However, he maintained a relatively great distance from Jian Shen the entire time. Clearly, he still feared Jian Shen very much. Jian Shen became locked in combat with the third heavenly layer and sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beasts. Temporarily, Jian Shen could not kill the stronger golden sword beast, so his main target became the weaker golden sword beast. He showed no mercy at all, unleashing his full strength in hopes of ending the battle fast. Obviously, it was not difficult for him to kill the golden sword beast with his current battle prowess. However, Jian Shen faced great obstruction under the interference of the sixth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. He was forced to spend some effort in repelling the stronger golden sword beast many times. Only then was he able to focus on the weaker golden sword beast. Finally, after around half an hour, he successfully killed the weaker golden sword beast, stowing the corpse away as quickly as he could. The corpses of these golden sword beasts would all be valuable. The stronger they were, the more precious they were. With the death of 3 primordial realm golden sword beasts, the pressure that the spatial battleship faced decreased drastically. Coupled with the addition of the spectral elder, the primordial realm experts from the Float Empire were gradually able to recover from their weaker position. However, even with that being the case, the remaining infinite primes apart from Jian Shen and Yi Jianpain struggled to gain the upper hand against the golden sword beasts. The defenses of the golden sword beasts were just too tough, and their battle prowess was impressive as well. Apart from experts with startling strength, most people would find it difficult to fend off golden sword beasts. Even with god artifacts, they would struggle to inflict heavy injuries. As a result, only 2 of the remaining 9 golden sword beasts suffered from some wounds. The 2 of them happened to be the leading golden sword beast fighting Yi Jianpain and the one who fought against the spectral elder and a member of the Float Empire. Jian Shen frowned when he saw how he was locked in combat against the 6th heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. It was worth more than the 3rd heavenly layer golden sword beast, at least 2 times more, so he really wanted to kill it. However, he could not use the 9-star sword of heavenly ways or the profound sword Qi. They were basically symbolic of his identity, so he was certain that the primordial realm experts would immediately recognize him once he used them. If he did not use them, the strength from his laws of the sword and chaotic body were not enough to kill the golden sword beast. At this moment, dazzling lights suddenly appeared. Formations began to fuse together on the spatial battleship, forming a colossal hexagram. Terrifying energy, enough to send chills down Jian Shen's spine, charged up within the hexagram. Jian Shen could clearly sense that over 80% of the power in the entire spatial battleship had surged into the hexagram like raging rivers. As a result, the energy within the hexagram grew more and more powerful. It shone like the sun, illuminating outer space. No longer under attack by primordial realm space beasts, the spatial battleship finally had enough power to deal out its most powerful attack. This is the light of destruction. Jian Shen's eyes narrowed. The energy gathering in the hexagram was alarming to him. The might of the strike would definitely be on the level of a 9th heavenly layer infinite prime or even beyond that. The light of destruction is a terrifying killing formation created from the fusion of many formations. It's the ultimate trump card of this spatial battleship, and its strongest attack when journeying through outer space. It requires a tremendous amount of resources each time it's used, and it is never used unless absolutely necessary. The information regarding the hexagram quickly flashed through Jian Shen's head. At this moment, the power within the hexagram finished charging up. A blinding stream of light suddenly shot out. The dark outer space was dyed white. Countless stars paled in comparison. It was as if the stream of light from the hexagram had become the only existence in the world. Boom! With a deafening sound, terrifying storms of energy swept out. The beam of light from the hexagram struck the ninth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast with power that was chilling to all infinite primes. Immediately, slashes appeared on the golden sword beast. Golden blood oozed out and scattered in outer space. The light of destruction was just too powerful. It had surpassed the ninth heavenly layer of infinite prime and was enough to rival the strike of a chaotic prime. The attack alone had heavily injured the ninth heavenly layer infinite prime golden sword beast. Heaven sealing 9 swords, in trap. At this moment, Giant Pain called out, and 9 swords shot out from him. They fell into a formation and trapped the golden sword beast. Afterwards, his sword danced, and he completely displayed his strength as a ninth heavenly layer infinite prime. Powerful strands of sword chi landed on the remaining 8 golden sword beasts. Every single strand of sword chi was extremely powerful. They tore through space and ripped open gashes. The golden sword beast that Jian Chen struggled to kill immediately suffered heavy injuries from one of Giant Pain's sword chi. Golden blood spurted out constantly as it was blown far away. The other primordial realm golden sword beasts were heavily injured by Giant Pain's sword chi as well, knocked far away. All the primordial realm experts from the Float Empire roused their battle spirit, prepared to pursue their opponents. Don't keep fighting. Everyone board the spatial battleship, quick. At this moment, Giant Pain's voice rang out. However, its presence and the pulses of energy it gave off had completely exceeded the ninth heavenly layer of infinite prime. There's an emperor-level existence, equivalent to chaotic primes, among this herd of golden sword beasts, muttered the Elder of Mountains and seized to himself as he paid attention to the golden streak of light. He still did not take it seriously. The chaotic prime golden sword beast seemed to know that its ninth heavenly layer clansman had been killed, so it charged towards the Elder of Mountains and Seas aggressively. It gave off astonishing killing intent. "Humph, you have no regard for your life," said the Elder of Mountains and Seas with a sneer. He swung his arm, and the surroundings immediately began to dim. The power of laws surged over like an ocean, blasting the chaotic prime golden sword beast far away. "Don't disturb me, or I'll kill you too." The Elder of Mountains and Seas snorted coldly before closing his eyes and using his innate ability to sense Jian Chen's position. His innate ability could only sense Jian Chen's position, not his exact location. As a result, he had to stop and sense Jian Chen's position every once in a while to avoid trailing off in the wrong direction. After suffering once, the chaotic prime golden sword beast seemed to understand the Elder of Mountains and Seas' strength. It no longer charged recklessly. Instead, it produced a sharp mental pulse that passed through the space and reached the depths of the starry sea. The Elder of Mountains of Seas was surprised inside. He immediately opened his eyes and became rather stern. He growled and said, "You're actually asking for help? Don't tell me the strongest in this golden sword beast herd isn't an emperor equivalent to chaotic primes but a sovereign-level existence equivalent to grand primes?" As if confirming the Elder of Mountains of Seas' words, the space before him suddenly ripped open and dazzling light immediately poured out. A golden sword only 10 meters long appeared from the crack with blinding light, shooting towards the Elder of Mountains and Seas with the power to kill. A sovereign-level existence among golden sword beasts. The Elder of Mountains and Seas' face changed, and he cried out. He finally became stern. Moreover, Jian Chen's method of killing countless godhood golden sword beasts with a single thought had filled the spectral elder with even more shock. It led to suspicions about Jian Chen's identity. He could not be a simple person if he possessed such astonishing battle prowess and such terrifying techniques. The spectral elder struggled to imagine just how powerful the organization behind Jian Chen was. Anya Jiuyo frowned and asked grimly, "Is this person really that powerful?" Where even you, the spectral elder, are not his opponent. The spectral elder sighed, and lingering fear appeared in his ordinary eyes. He said, "You might not believe me, but if it weren't for his mercy and the fact that he didn't want to kill me, I probably wouldn't be alive right now. The person who's auctioning the god artifact has the strength of a 6th heavenly layer infinite prime at the very least or even more." What? Anya Joyo's face changed drastically. Meanwhile, the primordial realm experts who served the Float Empire had all gathered on the top floor of the spatial battleship under Yi Jianping's lead. This time, they were not sitting in the air. Instead, they had taken out a white jade table and invited Jian Chen up, receiving him with aged wine. The strength that Jian Chen displayed during the fight against the Golden Sword beasts had earned their respect. His services made them admire him. Fa Yun, who had tested Jian Chen several days ago, took the initiative to say a toast, apologizing to Jian Chen for his past brashness. Jian Chen waved his hand and did not mind it. It had only been a small test from Fa Yun earlier. He did not do anything overboard, so Jian Chen did not care about what had happened. Fellow Yang Yutian's way of the sword is so powerful that it's rarely seen. "I'm afraid your master must be a renowned, supreme expert in the saint's world," said Yi Jianping. His eyes shone brightly with sword intent. Everyone on the desolate plain knew the name of Chang Yang already, so Jian Chen changed his name to Yang Yutian after he left the desolate plain. Jian Chen knew that Yi Jianping was investigating his background. He immediately smiled mysteriously and replied, "My master is indeed a renowned, supreme expert of the saint's world. There are not a lot of people who don't know about him. However, he especially warned me to not admit that I'm his disciple or mention my background unless I become a Grand Prime." Jian Chen's words contained some lies and truth. The master he referred to was obviously one of the 5 grand exalts of the immortals world, the old master of the twin swords. His words towards the end were all lies. However, he indeed could not disclose his true identity before he was powerful enough to fend off Grand Primes. However, when they heard that, the primordial realm experts immediately became shocked. They were quite frightened. Grand Primes were figures on the level of ancestors in their Float Empire. What? The 9 Brilliant Star Lord is actually a Grand Exalt's disciple, and that Grand Exalt is the Blood Tier Grand Exalt? Jian Chen's heart shuddered. Such a person would definitely be one of the most dazzling figures in the saint's world as a Grand Exalt's disciple. Moreover, Jian Chen had never expected him to be a disciple of the Blood Tier Grand Exalt. Back on the desolate plain, he had faced the Blood Tier Grand Exalt in person. He felt like there was nothing he could hide before a Grand Exalt, which filled Jian Chen with chills. Grand Exalts were simply too powerful. They could not be compared to the Grand Primes who chased him around the desolate plain. Even though Jian Chen had reached the 14th layer of the chaotic body, and his strength had increased drastically, he had a strong premonition that it would be exactly the same if he faced a Grand Exalt again. He would not even be able to move a finger. As soon as he thought of the Blood Tier Grand Exalt who appeared back then, Jian Chen could not help but feel uncertain from the bottom of his heart. He was certain that the Blood Tier Grand Exalt had discovered the twin swords on him. Logically speaking, Grand Exalts would never spare him if his identity was revealed. After all, the twin swords had killed many experts of the saint's world in the hands of their previous master. However, in reality, the Blood Tier Grand Exalt did not make anything difficult for him. He did not even say anything, leaving mysteriously. He even left the corpse of the strongest existence among the 3 dark gold ape kings of the ancient great apes behind. This filled Jian Chen with uncertainty. "Fellow Yang Yutian," said Fa Yun. He looked at Jian Chen before pausing in hesitance. Jian Chen dismissed his thoughts and put the matter of the Blood Tier Grand Exalt aside. He glanced at Fa Yun and smiled. He asked, "Fa Yun, do you want to buy the god artifact?" Fa Yun nodded. He desired it, but Jian Chen's reserve price was just too high. It was 5,005 colored divine crystals. He could not afford such a price no matter what. Even if he borrowed from his companions of the Float Empire, he would struggle to gather it. After a while of thought, Jian Chen said, "Fa Yun, if you want the god artifact, wait until the auction ends." Jian Chen knew the value of 5-colored divine crystals. It was simply too unrealistic for a regular infinite prime without any special background to take out 5,000 of them suddenly. He planned on selling it to Fa Yun privately for a lower price after the auction, as it was unlikely for it to be sold. She could vaguely sense a powerful presence rapidly approaching them from an extremely distant region of space. Moreover, she could even vaguely sense the person's precise location. It felt like her soul had fused with the cosmos such that her senses were even greater than Jian Chen's. However, she would not always possess this ability. It only happened from time to time. Moreover, she discovered that her strength did not change at all even when her senses strengthened. But I'm wearing a mask that can completely conceal my presence. Even if peak experts stand before me, they won't be able to tell who I am. How did the person behind us find me? Moreover, we're already so far from the desolate plain. Jian Chen was also in doubt. He could not understand this no matter how he thought about it. After all, he had worn the mask for many years on the desolate plain, preventing the Grand Primes from finding him at all, so why did he suddenly catch someone's eye now that he was off the desolate plain? These peak experts all have exceptional abilities and countless methods to achieve what they want. Even if you wear your mask, you won't be able to achieve true flawlessness. Perhaps, they had some methods of bypassing your disguise and finding you among the sea of people, said Kaya. At this moment, Kaya suddenly let out a sound of surprise. A strange light appeared in her eyes. What happened? Jian Chen looked at Kaya. Kaya said softly, "The person who's chasing us is veering off in the wrong direction. He's following the direction that we left the spatial battleship before, and he's traveling straight. He hasn't altered his direction. You can sense his precise location?" Jian Chen's eyes lit up. He already knew Kaya's senses were extremely powerful such that even the Inata Tower was not enough to block them. However, he never expected them to be so astonishing. Even he was unable to correctly sense the location of the expert behind him, yet Kaya could. This ability was just too shocking. Kaya nodded and said, "He has stopped." The light in Jian Chen's eyes flickered. He did not say anything in response. However, a short while later, Kaya's face changed slightly. She cried out, "Oh no, he's moving again. He's moving towards our current location. He has located us precisely." With that, Jian Chen immediately controlled the direction of the spaceship, heading off in a different direction. An hour later, Kaya said, "The person has passed by where we were before, but he did not stop. Instead, he kept flying. He's getting further and further away from us." Jian Chen was secretly astonished. Kaya's senses were so powerful that they were unimaginable. After all, even his soul that had fused with a strand of true chaotic force was unable to sense someone so far away. "You're right. That person indeed has a wondrous method to bypass the mask and find us," Jian Chen growled. He was extremely stern. Chapter 24:14, From the Moon God Hall. Within the spatial crack, the damaged Inata Tower had already shrunk to the size of a fist. They traveled as quickly as they could in a zigzagging fashion. No matter how powerful the streams of energy were, no matter how terrifying the temporal vortices were, the Inata Tower would not try to avoid them. It flew as a faint golden streak of light. It specially traveled towards the more dangerous places. The Inata Tower was truly able to rampage about fearlessly like a bull in this chaotic space where even primordial realm experts had to be cautious. Nothing could stop it. The laws within the spatial cracks were incomplete, the 5 elements were reversed, and yin and yang were a mess. A sense of time did not exist. Jian Chen and Kaya had charged through many dangerous regions for who knows how long, but the sense of danger remained in Jian Chen's heart. This allowed Jian Chen to understand that he had not managed to shake off the peak expert behind him. Instead, the distance between them gradually lessened. Let's leave this place. Jianshan knew that he could not continue on like this. He immediately made a decision and emerged from the Anata Tower. Wielding the 9-star sword of heavenly ways, he slashed out as hard as he could under the illumination of countless stars. Immediately, the space before him twisted violently, and a crack was ripped open. Powerful pulses of energy scattered out in the surroundings with sword chi. At that moment, the unstable space became affected and became even more chaotic. Many streams of energy surged out in the surroundings, ramming into Jian Chen with force that could make even primordial realm experts pale. However, Jian Chen's body only shook a little. The terrifying streams of energy did not harm him at all. The 14th layer of the chaotic body had gifted Jian Chen with unimaginable toughness. Even though the streams of energy were very powerful and could even heavily injure some infinite primes, it was nowhere close to harming Jian Chen. Jian Chen ignored the streams of energy that battered him. He just grabbed the fist-sized Anata Tower. Without any hesitation, he entered the crack with a flash and returned to the Anata Tower. Afterwards, he took out the small spaceship again, entered it, and continued on his way. Kaya emerged from the Anata Tower and stood within the spaceship with Jian Chen, constantly paying attention to the expert behind them. The person behind us should catch up very soon. He has a secret technique to sense my position, so we can't shake him off. All we can do now is find a teleportation formation as quickly as possible and venture to the Prosper Plane, Jian Chen said sternly before immediately taking out a star chart. He looked for the closest teleportation formation that could take him to other planes. Back on the cloud plane, Fairy Haoyu had become especially powerful after she recovered. She had killed her way into the Empyrean demon cult alone. Even when the 3 vice leaders worked together, they could do nothing to her. In the end, she punched a hole through the headquarters of the Empyrean demon cult and basically swaggered out. Now, after so many years, Fairy Haoyu had probably become a chaotic prime. Nan Patian of the Moon God Hall was a peak chaotic prime already many years ago. I wonder if he has broken through to Grand Prime now. However, even if Nan Patian hasn't broken through, it's impossible for Fairy Haoyu to be his opponent. I hope Fairy Haoyu is safe, Jian Chen thought as he worried for her safety. However, he also understood that he himself was in trouble right now and would not necessarily survive. He was currently being chased by a mysterious expert, so he was in no shape to help Fairy Haoyu. I can only hurry to the Prosper Plane as quickly as I can. As long as I personally return the Anata Tower to the heavenly palace of Bisheng, the merit will be very great. Not only will I be able to exchange for a large amount of cultivation resources for my sister, but I'll also be able to spare the effort to help out Fairy Haoyu. With the strength of the heavenly palace of Bisheng, settling the Moon God Hall's problems is only a matter of a single sentence. Jian Chen became eager. He wanted to reach the heavenly palace of Bisheng immediately. At this moment, Jian Chen flipped his hand, and a single talisman appeared in his hands. Is this a cosmic movement talisman? Jian Chen's eyes lit up as he stared at it. He had obtained several cosmic movement talismans from the Grand Prime Space Ring back in the Neptunian Divine Palace. Those cosmic movement talismans were of extremely high quality. They could transport people incredibly far away. Once they were activated, it was even possible to escape from regular Grand Primes. Now that he had found a talisman that was basically the same as them, Jian Chen immediately rejoiced. The mysterious expert pursuing them could find his position in the sea of stars with precision through a wondrous secret technique. Jian Chen could not shake him off no matter how he tried. The appearance of the cosmic movement talisman was basically giving him exactly what he needed when he needed it the most. No, this cosmic movement talisman is of a very low quality. It can't be compared to the ones I obtained from the Neptunian Divine Palace. However, very soon, Jian Chen sighed in disappointment. He felt a sense of relief. He could clearly see the tremendous plain of land that belonged to the Star Brilliance Plane. Due to being too far away, the Star Brilliance Plane was only the size of a fingernail to Jian Chen right now. It was like a piece of earth, floating quietly in outer space without moving at all. The heavenly king of azure brilliance could cross this distance in a single moment, but Jian Chen needed 2 days. Looking at the star brilliance plane up ahead, Kaya, who stood beside Jian Chen, did not seem to lighten up at all. Instead, it seemed like something was weighing on her mind. This was because she experienced an intense sense of threat during this entire half a year. The threat was so great that she felt like she was facing the heavens, where there was nowhere she could hide. The only thing she could do was wait for its arrival and accept it. At this moment, Kaya suddenly looked at Jian Chen. The light in her eyes flickered as she hesitated. It was as if there was something she wanted to say to Jian Chen, but she struggled to open her mouth about it. Kaya, what's the matter? Jian Chen was an infinite prime now. He was so powerful that even though he placed all his attention on the star brilliance plane, he still sensed that there was something off with Kaya. Kaya turned away and looked at the star brilliance plane as if she was avoiding Jian Chen's gaze. After a while of silence, she finally worked up the courage and said softly, Jian Chen, there's something I've actually always wanted to ask you, but I never dared to. Originally, I planned on burying it in my heart without anyone knowing, but I have an intense feeling that if I don't say it now, I might not get a chance to in the future. Jian Chen was surprised when he heard that. He glanced at Kaya deeply and remained silent. He was not dim. He could clearly tell what Kaya was trying to say from her tone and expression. Kaya had clearly fallen in love with him. This troubled Jian Chen. He actually had no idea how to handle this situation. Kaya was born in the sea realm in the lower world. Jian Chen could still clearly remember the first time he met Kaya. Back then, he and newbies sought refuge in the sea realm to avoid the many experts of the beast god continent. Back then, Kaya was the daughter of a patriarch of a tribe within the sea realm. They had been brought together through some crystal coins, which led to everything else that followed. Afterwards, he obtained the Octaterra Emperor's cultivation method and passed it to Kaya, but unexpectedly, it caused the destruction of Kaya's tribe. The entire tribe was exterminated, forcing Kaya to flee into a danger zone of the sea realm to survive. Many years later, when Kaya emerged from the zone of danger, not only did her strength increase drastically, but she had even tamed a true divine beast, the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast. As a result, she stood at the apex of the Tian Yuan continent. Afterwards, she was heavily injured in the war against the world of Forsaken Saints and was unconscious ever since. In order to heal Kaya, he brought her to the Saints' world and only managed to save her after strenuous effort. Jian Chen admitted that he had gone to great lengths to awaken Kaya, even risking his life to venture into the Een Mountains of Seven's despair just to look for heavenly resources that could heal the soul. Although he had done a lot for Kaya, he only treated her as his best friend. He felt no attraction towards her. He had never expected Kaya to actually fall in love with him. Kaya, you've known me for quite some time. You should understand me, said Jian Chen slowly after a while of thought. His voice contained deep powerlessness. Some matters could not be prevented, such as Kaya falling in love with him. It was impossible for him to prevent that. As a matter of fact, it would have been better if he did not know this. He had always treated Kaya as his best friend. He did that since the Tian Yuan continent. Especially when the two of them had fled the cloud plain due to Huai An's pursuit, the hardships and difficulties they experienced along the way had deepened their friendship. Of course, it was only friendship. It was exactly because of this friendship that he was unwilling to harm Kaya at all. Hence, he felt powerless about Kaya's love towards him. Kaya was in low spirits. She did not look at Jian Chen and looked at the pitch-black space gloomily instead. Jian Chen, do you feel that I'm not pretty enough? Kaya asked gently. She revealed her true feelings. She had said something she had kept buried in her heart for many years, causing all the feelings she had repressed during those years to suddenly erupt like a volcano. It was extremely intense. At that moment, she seemed to have become fearless. She felt no shyness about being a woman. She had gained courage. Jian sighed gently. The suddenness of the matter had caught him off guard. Unprepared, he was immediately left at a loss about how to handle this situation. Even though Kaiya's appearance was not alluring, she was still rather pretty. She was not as ugly as she believed herself to be. Of course, Jian had already seen through materialistic concepts at his level of cultivation. Appearances were nothing to him. No matter how beautiful someone was on the outside, that was only surface level. Once the surface was removed, they were just a combination of flesh and bone. As a result, Jian had already broken free from the outlook of mortals with his current level of cultivation. He found no difference in beauty and ugliness. However, Kaiya was a god king, yet she still cared about her appearance. This made Jian realize just how deeply in love she was with him. The love had obscured her. It had disorientated her, preventing her from seeing the essence of things. Jian, when I was heavily injured on the Tianyuan continent and entered a long period of slumber, you might have thought that I had lost contact with the outside world completely and had no idea what was happening around me. Kaiya turned around and looked at Jian. Her face was mixed, and she continued, but in reality, it was the exact opposite. I knew exactly what you did during the time I was unconscious. The Elder of Mountains and Seas appeared there like a ghost. As soon as he appeared, he closed his eyes and used his innate ability. When he opened his eyes, coldness flashed through them. I found you. You seem to be on the Star Brilliance plane. Don't you even think about escaping through the teleportation formations on the Star Brilliance plane. The Elder of Mountains and Seas became frantic. He did not dare to waste any time, so with a single movement, he vanished. He hurried off towards the Star Brilliance plane as quickly as he could. I've chased you for so long, so I can't let you enter the teleportation formation no matter what, the Elder of Mountains and Seas snarled inside. This was because he could guess that Jian would undergo consecutive teleportations and reach the proper plane before him. It would be difficult for him to stop Jian. If Jian returned the Anata Tower to the heavenly palace of Bisheng before he could catch up, there would be no more point in hunting him down. I have to stop him. The Elder of Mountains and Seas gritted his teeth. The light in his eyes flickered as he thought, I do have some ties with the Point Cloud Venerable of the 5-Point Sect. It looks like I can only send a message to him. Making up his mind, the Elder of Mountains and Seas immediately took out a jade talisman for messaging. A white-robed old man sat in the air among a mist-covered mountain range within the forbidden grounds of the 5-Point Sect. He did not give off any presence at all, making him seem just like an ordinary person. However, the space around the old man seemed to beat like a living heart. It throbbed rhythmically. As the space beat, the time there seemed to be affected as well, forcing it to become extremely unnatural. It would be slow at times and fast at other times. Unbelievably, time would even reverse. The laws of space and the laws of time were present on a single person. This old man was the supreme existence of the 5-Point Sect, the Point Cloud Venerable. At this moment, a jade talisman appeared in the Point Cloud Venerable's hand. He looked at it and murmured, It's from the Elder of Mountains and Seas from the Gloomwater sect of the Aqua Plane. Why is he suddenly looking for me? The senses of the Point Cloud Venerable's soul immediately entered the talisman. He received a message from the Elder of Mountains and Seas from so far away. Point Cloud Venerable, seal up the 3 interplanar teleportation formations within your 5-Point Sect. I'm about to set foot on the Star Brilliance plane. I'm willing to give you 2 droplets of hell water in exchange. The Elder of Mountains and Seas' voice rang out. 2 droplets of hell water. The Point Cloud Venerable cried out as his eyes immediately became extremely bright. Hell water was a speciality of the Aqua Plane. It came from the few hell springs on the Aqua Plane. They were divine liquids that could consolidate the soul and cleanse impurities. Even to Grand Primes, they were extremely useful, which made them very precious. A single droplet of hell water would only condense after 1,000,000 years. They were extremely precious, making them a treasure that had all demand and no supply in the saints' world. However, the Elder of Mountains and Seas had offered 2 droplets of them all of a sudden, and it was just to make the 5-point sect close their interplanar teleportation formations. This made the Point Cloud Venerable believe the Elder of Mountains and Seas had lost his mind. "All right, 2 droplets of hell water. That's what you promised." The Point Cloud Venerable agreed without thinking too much about it, as if he feared the Elder of Mountains and Seas would rescind the deal. Jian Shen and Kaiya stood in the center of the teleportation formation in Firelight City. It had already been activated, causing white light to rise up and shine brighter and brighter. Gradually, it enveloped Jian Shen and Kaiya. The teleportation formation was charging up. Very soon, Jian Shen and Kaiya would be transported off the Star Brilliance plane and to the Hematophagous plane. However, at this moment, the mind of the Infinite Prime who watched over the teleportation formation shuddered. The powerful senses of the soul surged over. The arrival of the senses of the soul immediately made the middle-aged man show great respect. In just 5 seconds, a gleam of light shone through the eyes of the middle-aged man. He suddenly looked at Jian Shen and Kaiya, who stood within the activated teleportation formation. He immediately formed seals with both hands, sending a power into the teleportation formation. Immediately, the teleportation formation stopped gathering power. The shining light from the teleportation formation that was just about to be fully activated gradually dimmed, returning to normal very soon due to its energy source being cut off. The teleportation was halted. Chapter 24:18, End of the Line. 1. Jian Shen stood within the teleportation formation and sensed the strengthening power. He finally became relieved. He had taken a teleportation formation across planes before. Although the formation needed to gather power for a while, he could definitely leave the Star Brilliance plane before the mysterious expert arrived. As long as he made it onto the Hematophagous plane, he would be able to take a second teleportation formation and directly travel to the Prosper plane. Provided he continued with his teleportations, the mysterious expert who pursued him definitely would not be able to catch up, even if they were a Grand Prime. At this moment, the blinding teleportation formation suddenly dimmed. Even the power rapidly weakened. Very soon, the teleportation formation that was charging up to send them to another plane came to a complete stop. What's going on? Why has the teleportation formation stopped? Jian Shen suddenly looked at the Infinite Prime responsible for the teleportation formation, and his face became sunken. "I've just received orders to temporarily close down the interplanar teleportation formation. No one can leave through our 5-point sex teleportation formations," the middle-aged man said helplessly. However, his gaze towards Jian Shen and Kaiya contained a hint of suspicion. He wondered to himself, strange. Why has the ancestor suddenly shut down the teleportation formation? That rarely ever happens. Is it because of the 2 of them? Jian Shen's heart sank. He could already guess that it was related to the mysterious expert who was chasing them. He did not say anything. Instead, he immediately pulled Kaiya towards the several dozen teleportation formations that were limited to taking people around the Star Brilliance plane. There are several dozen teleportation formations that can take people to different places on the Star Brilliance plane. Since the 5-point sex is unavailable, we'll go elsewhere. I refuse to believe he can close all the interplanar teleportation formations on the Star Brilliance plane, Jian Shen said coldly before immediately stepping into a teleportation formation nearby and leaving the territory of the 5-point sect. The ancestor of the 5-point sect, the Point Cloud Venerable, remained seated in the air. Although he did not take a single step out of the forbidden grounds, nothing on the Star Brilliance plane could be hidden from him if he wanted to know. This was because the senses of his soul were so powerful that he could envelope the entire Star Brilliance plane. It looks like the Elder of Mountains and Seas has come for the 2 of them. Who are they? They're only a mere Infinite Prime and God King, yet they're enough for the Elder of Mountains and Seas to pay such a hefty price to prevent them from leaving the Star Brilliance plane, thought the Point Cloud Venerable. He had become extremely curious about why the Elder of Mountains and Seas had used 2 droplets of hell water to stop 2 measly figures that did not raise his attention at all. Hell water had extremely significant effects on even grand primes, so its value went without saying. Despite that being the case, the Elder of Mountains and Seas was actually using 2 droplets for the 2 of them. Such an act did not suit him at all. I heard the Elder of Mountains and Seas recently went to the desolate plain to get the Anata Tower from Jian Chen. Is one of them Jian Chen in disguise? The Point Cloud Venerable's eyes lit up. He immediately stood up, and a terrifying presence radiated from him. It made mountains tremble and space twist. The disturbance caused by the Anata Tower had spread across the entire Saints world long ago. The Point Cloud Venerable naturally knew about it, but since there were just too many experts gathered on the desolate plain, the Point Cloud Venerable knew it was very unlikely for him to obtain the Anata Tower. He might even end up offending all the organizations, so he did not take part back then. But now that it was extremely likely for Jian Chen to be in the territory of his 5-point sect and that no one else apart from the Elder of Mountains and Seas knew, the Point Cloud Venerable immediately became interested. Even if he obtained the Anata Tower, he would not need to worry about all the experts coming to fight him for it. Ha ha ha, what a heaven-sent blessing, what a heaven-sent blessing. All the other people want the Anata Tower so that they can return it and benefit from the heavenly palace of Bisheng. But with my methods, if I plan things properly, I can prevent anyone else from learning about this. I might even be able to take the Anata Tower for myself. The Point Cloud Venerable chuckled aloud. The laws of time and space wrapped around him. He had already begun to use his exceptional techniques to obscure the heavenly secrets. However, at this moment, his heart suddenly thumped. A sense of unease silently rose up in his heart. The Point Cloud Venerable was surprised. After a moment of thought, he seemed to fuse with the world. Under the complementary laws of space and time, a river of time appeared beneath his feet. The light in his eyes flickered as he peered into something. He gave off a dense presence of ways as he looked along the flow of time, gazing into the future. Gradually, the Point Cloud Venerable's excitement vanished. He became stern. Very soon, the river of time vanished, and the presence of ways around him disappeared as well. He hovered in the air as he stared into the distance. He was stern and surprised. I never thought the Anata Tower would be such a huge piece of karma. It's a disaster. I can't possess it. Although I can't see the source of this karma and I struggle to see the origins of the disaster, I did see the destruction of the 5-point sect and my death. If I interfere and take the Anata Tower for myself, it might end up with me, but my final fate would be death. The Point Cloud Venerable struggled to remain composed. He became rather pale. He possessed wondrous abilities with the combination of the laws of time and space. He could see fate and the future. He had managed to avoid many calamities with this ability, which was why he firmly believed what he saw in the river of time. The Point Cloud Venerable gradually calmed down. He sat back down and decided to no longer interfere. To another side, Jian Chen had already left the territory of the 5-point sect through a teleportation formation. They had arrived in a second city with an interplanar teleportation formation. After paying the 5-colored divine crystals, they tried to teleport away as soon as possible. The sense of danger within him was becoming more and more powerful. He knew that there was not much time remaining. However, at this moment, a powerful senses of the soul descended from outer space, directly enveloping the city where Jian Chen was located. Jian Chen could clearly sense the suffocating senses of the soul from within the teleportation formation. It surged through the dense power of the formation and enveloped him. The senses of the soul were so powerful that it actually interfered with the operation of the teleportation formation. Immediately, the power around the teleportation formation pulsed with instability. The teleportation formation could not charge up anymore. Oh, no. Jian Chen's face changed. The mysterious expert was even faster than he had imagined. Chapter 24:19, End of the Line, 2, Rip. In the next moment, space was ripped open. An old, shriveled hand instantly reached out towards the teleportation formation that could take people to other planes. The hand contained unbelievable power, and the laws had condensed around it as well. The thick layer of power around the teleportation formation seemed as fragile as a piece of paper before it, unable to stop the hand at all. Stop. This teleportation formation belongs to our Rakshasa sect. Senior, if you ignore the rules and destroy the teleportation formation of our Rakshasa sect, aren't you afraid of angering the Rakshasa ancestor? Called out the primordial realm expert who watched over the teleportation formation. As the teleportation formation operated, all of the protective formations would be shut down, so the teleportation formation was completely open right now. Not only did the arrival of the shriveled hand disrupt the stability of the teleportation formation, but it could even cause irreparable damage to the structure and inscriptions. After all, this was a teleportation formation that could take people across planes, not any old formation. The construction of every single one of them cost a tremendous amount of wealth. Even peak organizations would not have many of them. They would be extremely difficult to repair once damaged. I, the Elder of Mountains and Seas, will pay for all your Rakshasa sect's damages twofold, said the Elder of Mountains and Seas. He stepped out of the rip, and the blue light around him enveloped the entire city as an ocean. With the power of waves weaved in between, it obscured the sky and hid everything happening within it. Afterwards, he suddenly wrenched his hand back. Jian Chen and Kaya, who stood within teleportation formation, immediately felt a mysterious power restrain the space around them. As a result, the two of them were pulled out of the teleportation formation. As this happened, neither Jian Chen nor Kaya was able to resist at all. After all, they faced a grand prime. The difference in strength was just too great. Swish. With a flash, the Elder of Mountains and Seas departed with Jian Chen and Kaya. He had vanished. The primordial realm expert from the Rakshasa sect nearby immediately crushed a jade talisman. In the next moment, powerful senses of the soul emanated over and revolved around the sky above the city. The Elder of Mountains and Seas, a voice that seemed to emerge from hell rang out in the space there vaguely. Afterwards, the powerful senses of the soul expanded and enveloped the entire star brilliance plane. The ancestor of the Rakshasa sect searched for the Elder of Mountains and Seas across the entire star brilliance plane. In an extremely remote region of the star brilliance plane, the Elder of Mountains and Seas stood proudly within a water blue barrier. He was unable to contain his excitement. Before him stood Jian Chen and Kaya. They were both stern. Now that they faced a grand prime, their hearts had completely sunken. My heaven-obscuring barrier of flowing water can obscure the heavenly secrets and hide from the senses of the soul of most grand primes, so don't even think about waiting for other experts to arrive here then fleeing during the chaos. Jian Chen, you fled under my watch for so long. I would like to see how you'll be able to escape this time. The Elder of Mountains and Seas sniggered as if victory was within his grasp. Indeed, there was no reason for him to worry at all now that Jian Chen was trapped within his heaven-obscuring barrier of flowing water. The heaven-obscuring barrier of flowing water was equivalent to a miniature world. Unless the miniature world was destroyed, no one could escape from it. However, Jian Chen would be dreaming if he wanted to destroy a grand prime's barrier with his strength as an infinite prime. Senior, you went to such great lengths to chase us because of the Inata Tower. I can give you the Inata Tower, but you must spare us, Jian Chen said sternly. The Elder of Mountains and Seas shook his head when he heard that. He smiled strangely and said, Jian Chen, if you had come up with that earlier, I really might have spared the two of you. However, it's too late now. The Elder of Mountains and Seas' face turned cold and became filled with killing intent. He continued, you made me chase you for so long in outer space, and I even came across a golden sword beast sovereign because of you, injuring me a little. You angered me long ago. This time, even if you hand over the Inata Tower willingly, I will never spare you. I know you have some connections with the God Clan. If the God Clan was at their peak condition, I might have been a little afraid, but the God Clan is different from before. As long as you're dead, the Hall Elders and Great Elders of the God Clan will never take action for someone as measly as you. Are you really determined to kill us? Jian Chen's face sank. Determination flooded his eyes, and he secretly communicated with the sword spirits. He had run out of options now. The only way for him to fend off this disaster was through the fusion of the twin swords. Although this would expose his identity, he was out of choices now. The Elder of Mountains and Seas said nothing. Killing intent rose up in his eyes, and he no longer wasted any words on Jian Chen. He directly struck out. He extended a hand, and the power of laws surged. A blinding, blue light turned into a huge wave, sweeping towards Jian Chen and Kaya. As if he faced a great opponent, Jian Chen became extremely stern. He was about to fuse the twin swords. He did not hide inside the Inata Tower. Although the Elder of Mountains of Seas could not get through it, he could simply take it away. Once the Inata Tower ended up in the Elder of Mountains and Seas' hands, he would only need to refine it slightly with his exceptional abilities as a Grand Prime, and they would be reduced to sitting ducks. Boom! However, at this moment, a deafening sound suddenly rang out. The Elder of Mountains and Seas' heaven-obscuring barrier of flowing water trembled violently. Gradually, a crack appeared in the barrier that could block attacks from Grand Primes. Point Cloud Venerable, don't get in my way. Once I obtain the Inata Tower, I'll give you half of the benefits, the Elder of Mountains and Seas snarled. His barrier was extremely well hidden, enough to hide from the senses of Grand Prime souls. Apart from the Supreme Nine Brilliant Star Lord, only the Point Cloud Venerable could find him through the truths of space and time on the entire Star Brilliance plane. I don't want the Inata Tower. The Inata Tower is an object that ties into huge karma. Once I try to take it, I will face a massive crisis. Jian Chen, I am the Point Cloud Venerable of the 5-Point Sect. I will destroy the heaven-obscuring barrier of flowing water for you and end the tie I created with you earlier. Whether you can escape or not will be up to your luck. The Point Cloud Venerable's voice rang out slowly. The laws of space and time weaved together above the barrier, forming an invisible blade that landed on the barrier viciously. Immediately, the heaven-obscuring barrier of flowing water shattered. Kaya, leave with the Inata Tower. Jian Chen responded extremely quickly. He cut open space with the 9-star sword of heavenly ways and shoved the fist-sized Inata Tower into Kaya's hands. At the same time, he activated the cosmic movement talisman he had found from the primordial realm expert of the Moon God Hall without any hesitation and stuck it on Kaya. Then he pushed her into the spatial crack. His thought process was very simple. He wanted Kaya to take the Inata Tower, and then activate the cosmic movement talisman in the spatial crack so that she would be taken to somewhere unknown. Kaya would face no danger in the spatial crack if she possessed the Inata Tower. He could only remain behind to cover her, using the fusion of the twin swords to handle the Elder of Mountains and Seas or even kill him. As long as the Elder of Mountains and Seas remained alive, Kaya would be found once again even if she left with the Inata Tower. However, at this moment, Kaya actually forcefully flew back out from the spatial crack. She smiled faintly and seemed liberated. She said slowly, Jian Chen, if you want to leave, leave by yourself. I hope you will think of me often and not forget about me once I die, Kaya said gently. She pecked Jian Chen's cheek gently with her lips. You're facing death, yet you're still in the mood to act lovey-dovey? Do you think you still have the opportunity to escape before me? The Elder of Mountains and Seas snorted coldly. His terrifying presence crushed the space there, causing it to seize up. Jian Chen immediately felt like he had been immobilized. However, Kaya was unaffected. She could move about as she wished in the frozen space. She used the laws of creation, destruction, and fire simultaneously, knocking the immobilized Jian Chen into the spatial crack. Kaya! Jian Chen's face changed drastically as he fell into the spatial crack. He cried out. Kaya stood on the star brilliance plane and looked at Jian Chen with a smile. She seemed to be at ease, showing no fear as she faced death. Afterwards, she looked at the Elder of Mountains and Seas indifferently. Immediately, a blue light enveloped Kaya. The blue light had been condensed from the Elder of Mountains and Seas ways. It was the power of laws, containing unbelievable might. Kaiya's body began to disintegrate at a visible rate under the blue light, leaving nothing behind. Kaiya, no! Jian-Chen bellowed out furiously. His eyes turned bloodshot, he wanted to charge out again. He watched Kaiya die before him helplessly. The grief and sorrow he suffered were enough to cause him to end himself. However, at this moment, the cosmic movement talisman activated. A dense power surged out and vanished with him. The spatial crack gradually closed up as well. You're dreaming if you want to escape after ending up in my hands, the Elder of Mountains and Seas was furious. He had managed to corner Jian-Chen after chasing him for so long in outer space and expending so much effort. How could he just allow Jian-Chen to escape before him? The Elder of Mountains and Seas extended a finger. The power of laws descended, and a terrifying energy ripped through space. He was about to pursue Jian-Chen. He could tell from a single glance that Jian-Chen's cosmic movement talisman was not of particularly great quality. Even if he were transported away, he would not be far. Kaiya's body rapidly disintegrated as all of this happened. She was reduced to dust from the Elder of Mountains and Seas attack, dispersing into the surroundings bit by bit. It was her legs first, before spreading to her waist, and then the upper half of her body in the end. In an instant, Kaiya's entire body vanished completely, leaving only her head behind. The head rapidly disintegrated as well. There was no fear in her eyes at all. There were only sorrow and deep reluctance. She knew she was about to die. She did not fear death because she should have died back in the lower world. She had only awakened again because of Jian-Chen. Her sorrow and reluctance came from the fact that she understood she would not be able to accompany Jian-Chen ever again. She would not be able to fight at his side again. At this moment, Kaiya's face suddenly stiffened up. The light in her eyes suddenly vanished as if she had forgotten about her pain, her worries, and all feelings. In the next moment, a cold gaze appeared in Kaiya's eyes, directly gazing towards the Elder of Mountains of Seas. Under the icy gaze, the Elder of Mountains and Seas who had ripped open space and was about to pursue Jian-Chen quivered inside. A strange coldness filled his entire body. The Elder of Mountains and Seas unintentionally glanced at Kaiya's head, and his gaze just happened to lock onto her eyes. The Elder of Mountains and Seas immediately shuddered when they made eye contact. The gaze seemed to possess the might of the heavens and infinite power. Just a single glance had filled his entire soul with fear. His body turned cold, his blood stopped flowing, and a chill ran down his spine. What kind of eyes were they? They were cold, emotionless, just like the eyes of heaven. They looked down on all existences like they were ants. Even for someone as powerful as the Elder of Mountains and Seas, he could not help but grow cold inside. An inexplicable fear filled his mind completely. Even though he was a Grand Prime, he was unable to remain unaffected. Fortunately, this gaze only lasted for a split second before Kaiya's head completely disintegrated and dispersed into the surroundings. Nothing was left behind, including her soul. The gaze that struck fear into the heart of the Elder of Mountains and Seas had vanished with it. The Elder of Mountains and Mountains froze up there. What kind of gaze was that? Why was it so terrifying? The Elder of Mountains and Seas gradually recovered as he stood where Kaiya died. Still shaken, he remained in a daze. He had already become soaked in cold sweat. He had completely forgotten about chasing down Jian-Chen. The gaze had struck fear into his heart. He struggled to remain at ease from the dread he had just experienced. He was a Grand Prime, an existence that stood at the apex. He struggled to imagine just how powerful and terrifying an existence had to be to influence him so much with a single gaze. Probably even someone second to Grand Exalts, such as the 9 Brilliant Star Lord, can't strike fear into my heart with a single gaze. Since it's not someone second to Grand Exalts, then, the elder of mountains and seas' eyes narrowed. As soon as he considered that possibility, he felt his entire body turned cold. It was also at this moment that many powerful senses of the soul emanated over from various places on the star brilliance plane, circling around the elder of mountains and seas. The disturbance from a Grand Prime's attack was just too great. The point cloud venerable had destroyed the elder of mountains and seas' heaven-obscuring barrier of flowing water, so he had already raised the attention of all the peak experts on the star brilliance plane. They all sent over the senses of their souls to check on the situation. One of the senses was filled with intense anger. A furious message rang out, "Elder of mountains and seas, you've destroyed the teleportation formation of my Rakshasa sect. If you don't give me an explanation, I can only pay a visit to your territory." The owner of the senses of the soul was clearly the ancestor of the Rakshasa sect. He was also a Grand Prime, no weaker than the Elder of Mountains and Seas. However, at this moment, a great, mysterious power suddenly descended. With the arrival of the power, the nearby senses of the souls were like a mist before the scorching sun. They all dispersed. In an instant, all the powerful senses of the souls in the surroundings vanished completely. A range of 100 million kilometers around the Elder of Mountains and Seas became a region that senses of the souls could not enter. The supreme power suppressed all the senses of the Grand Primes, whether it was their physical senses or the one from their souls. It isolated the entire region. What's happening? All the peak experts on the star brilliance plane were startled by this. At that moment, everyone could not help but look towards the Elder of Mountains and Seas. Their gazes were extremely deep and seemed to hide a whole universe within them. It was like it had never appeared. It did not leave behind any traces either. The affected laws of the world on the star brilliance plane regained their order. The mysterious power that suppressed the senses of the soul vanished. Immediately, powerful senses of the souls swept over again, circling the region there. Afterwards, there were a few flickers, and many of the Grand Primes who sensed the abnormality hurried over. They hovered high in the air and looked down. The light in their eyes flickered as they felt both surprise and doubt. Where's the Elder of Mountains and Seas? Why has he suddenly vanished? If the Elder of Mountains and Seas had left, all of us would be able to sense him right now. But we found nothing at all. What happened here just now? Why were the senses of our souls blocked? Even the heavenly secrets had been obscured. The Point Cloud Venerable of the 5-Point sect had also arrived. He looked at the ground below silently. Point Cloud Venerable, you've grasped both the laws of space and time. In terms of understanding towards time-space, you surpass us all. Please turn back time so that we can find out what happened here, said some of the experts with ties with the Point Cloud Venerable. The Point Cloud Venerable shook his head. All of the order in this region of space has been thrown into chaos. The power is too strong, so I can't see anything, let alone turn back time. There is nothing that I can do. Suddenly, a powerful pressure appeared, and a man in azure robes silently appeared at an altitude of 10,000 meters. His arrival made all the stars in the sky shine with great brilliance. All starlight seemed to fall on him. The man who stood within the light from all the stars was the supreme expert that everyone knew on the star brilliance plane, the 9 Brilliant Star Lord. Chapter 24-22, Reincarnation. Greetings to the Star Lord. Greetings to the Star Lord. The arrival of the 9 Brilliant Star Lord caused all the peak experts there to clasp their fists and greet him. All of them showed respect. The 9 Brilliant Star Lord was in existence only second to Grand Primes. He had reached the 9th heavenly layer of Grand Prime many years ago and stood at the same level as the First Majesty of the Heavenly Palace of Bisheng, Exian. The 9 Brilliant Star Lord hovered in the sky. He looked around before gazing at where the Elder of Mountains and Seas died. His gaze immediately deepened, and the laws of the world wove into it. He peered into what happened there. However, the next moment, he frowned. The laws there had been reconstructed, removing all traces and heavenly secrets. Even with his level of cultivation, he was unable to find anything. Which expert came to my star brilliance plane? From the changes to the laws earlier, their cultivation is the same as mine at the very least. There are only so many people with the same cultivation as me in the current saint's world. Who is it? The 9 brilliant star lord's face became rather ugly. The star brilliance plane was his territory. Now that a foreign peak expert had killed someone on here, it was basically naked provocation. He did not forbid fighting between Grand Primes, but if an expert at the same level as him had come to cause trouble, he needed to stand forward. At this moment, the sky of the star brilliance plane suddenly became blood red. A figure condensed from blood appeared before the 9 brilliant star lord silently. Master. The 9 brilliant star lord was surprised by the blood-red figure. He immediately bowed politely. The blood-red figure was the blood tier Grand Exalt. Not only did the advent of a Grand Exalt surprise the 9 brilliant star lord, but all the peak experts below him also paled in fright and immediately bowed. All of them were left shocked and speechless. Did the blood tier Grand Exalt personally come to the star brilliance plane over the tiny matter that happened earlier? What did it mean since it could draw out a Grand Exalt? It meant that what happened earlier was nowhere near as simple as it seemed. Begone, said the blood tier Grand Exalt. His voice was filled with energy, and he ordered everyone to leave. Every single word and action from a Grand Exalt was equivalent to an edict from the world. No one dared to defy it. Immediately, all the peak experts gathered their left. Master, why have you come? The 9 brilliant star lord stood before the blood tier Grand Exalt and asked politely after everyone had left. Anata's reincarnation was killed in your territory. I obviously came to check it out, said the blood tier Grand Exalt. A dense, bloody mist gathered around him, completely obscuring his figure. What? Anata's reincarnation? The 9 brilliant star lord gasped. His face became filled with disbelief. Master, are you saying that in the war over 3 million years ago, the Anata Grand Exalt didn't die and instead reincarnated through samsara? The blood tier Grand Exalt nodded. In the past, he also believed that the Anata Grand Exalt had died and vanished from the world, but ever since he saw Anata's reincarnation on the desolate plain, he knew the Anata Exalt Prime had not died as rumored. Receiving confirmation from the blood tier Grand Exalt, the 9 brilliant star lord became solemn. He knew a little about samsara and reincarnation. Reincarnation bore extremely great risks to any expert, including Grand Exalts. Once a Grand Exalt reincarnated, they would lose all their memories and cultivation. They would return to being mortals and would have to cultivate their way back up step by step. It would be impossible for them to awaken their past memories before they reached a certain level of cultivation. The path of cultivation was littered with danger. Even if it were the reincarnation of a Grand Exalt, they would truly disappear from the world if they were slain and their souls were dispersed. And that was why the 9 brilliant star lord seemed so troubled when he learnt that the Anata Exalt Prime's reincarnation had been killed. He believed that with the death of Anata's reincarnation, it would mean that the Anata Exalt Prime was truly dead. Perhaps he was able to see the 9 brilliant star lord's worries, so the blood tier Grand Exalt continued, you don't need to worry. Anata's soul has already returned to the heavenly palace of Bisheng. She sealed up the past memories and only kept a soul with the current memories in her reincarnation. As a result, Anata actually wanted her death to happen. Master, I am very confused. Why did the Anata Grand Exalt want her reincarnation to die? Asked the 9 brilliant star lord. Anata's reincarnation was only a tool for Anata to comprehend the ways. Her reincarnation always accompanied a young man because she wanted her reincarnation to fall in love with the young man. She wanted to create a fruit of ways to assist her in comprehending her 5th way, the way of love. I paid some attention to the young man as well. He is the one who created quite a disturbance in the saints' world recently. He is the one who ran around everywhere with the Anata Tower, Jian Chen, said the blood tier Grand Exalt. What? The Anata Grand Exalt's reincarnation was for comprehending the way of love through Jian Chen? The 9 brilliant star lord was utterly stunned. This event basically meant that a sovereign of the saints' world had fallen in love with someone insignificant in the saints' world. This was an utter joke. The Blood-Tier Grand Exalt continued, now that Anata has abandoned her reincarnation, it seems like the fruit of ways for her to comprehend her fifth way is about to ripen.